marks part of modern history that has such a dark hole when the whole world stood by and watched genocide just happen, and it happened so rapidly without people even knowing.
It's been quite a big learning experience, just learning about the widespread impact of World War II and kind of the thought process of someone who would have been hiding for such a long time. Anna was so focused and she knew what she wanted to do, and so it's taught me a lot about determination and hope, I guess you could say.
The Holocaust is a great atrocity perhaps of human history, certainly of the 20th century. This gives us a window into how the Holocaust affected some of its victims and how they maintained their humanity in the face of it. It's a terribly important story.
This story is important because it's a part of history. It shows how everyone coped, how difficult the time was. It is different than actually reading Anne's diary. It's seeing it and seeing the tension, but the story, it's a part of history that people just don't get to see.
I think the story is important to remind us that this is how it begins, and I think it's important they teach this in school for that same reason.
In the show, we all call each other, the adults, Mrs., Mr., and I think that's to keep that semblance of civility, and I keep insisting, as Mrs. Frank, that the Van Dans are our guests, and keeping up that semblance of normalcy, as like this is my home and the Van Dans are guests, and calling them Mr. and Mrs. and not breaking that formality, I think is really important for me. I have to bite my tongue a lot because the Frank family is very different from the Van Dans family.
He copes with his situation by anger, by terror.
I have some issues with my younger daughter, Anna, and I think she's very different from Mrs. Frank, and whereas Mrs. Frank and Margot are very similar.
I have issues with my mother. She kind of annoys me, and I feel like she stifles me. And so I kind of run to my father throughout the story, and I look to him, and he kind of keeps me sane.
Again, he's the logical one. He's the peacemaker. As my wife mentioned, there's a lot of tension. As you can imagine, with so many people living together in such a confined space, that the children are growing. No one's ever had to live like this.
My sister Margot, I love her, but she's just a little too perfect for me because I don't quite measure up to her standards, and being the youngest child, I'm supposed to measure up to her standards.
She is kind of the caretaker of the house. She kind of takes after her mother and is very quiet, but she does care and has compassion for her sister and who else is in the house and everyone around.
Well, just based on my character, just feeling the racism that's coming from the Nazis and having to go into isolation, and basically what Peter feels throughout the entire show, which is he's got to keep to himself and he has to try and get through everything.
My character is Mr. Doozle, a dentist who in real life had a partner, but in this play he is used as the foil, if you will, so that we can understand more about the Jewish culture and that sort of thing. He is in between these two families. He is in the middle and frustrated with both sides of the fence, and as an individual who has always lived alone, he's pretty difficult to get along with as well.
Miepke's was one of the saviors of the Frank family. She brought them food and anything that they needed, clothes, soap, whatever they needed, she provided for them. And she did this because she didn't like what the Nazis were doing to the Jews, and she was very good friends with Mr. Frank. She actually worked for him, and she helped him run his business while he was shut up in the attic.
Mr. Crawler, whose real name was Kugler, did not care for the Nazis, period. Understood what humanity was, understood what right and wrong was, and had no trouble at all making the decision to hide the Franks And he knew he was facing some pretty stiff consequences if he was ever caught hiding Jews. And it was a no-brainer for him. Same with Miep Gies.
She keeps reiterating how she's not a hero, she's not a hero. And as much as she did, and she put her life on hold, and, you know, every single day she went out and above and beyond the call of duty, and she still, you know, she still doesn't believe that she's a hero. She's just so mild and humble.
This is a very effects-heavy show. There are somewhere between 50 to 100 cues between sound and lights alone. And kind of designing it is crazy. I mean, I've never really designed something to this scale. And to try and bring out the emotion and the power, it's not just costumes and the actors themselves. It's the lights, it's the sounds, it's the props. Everything kind of comes together and brings you this whole experience that really can have an effect on you.
One of the benefits of MTV Arts' role in the Classics series is that they bring actors that represent the ages of the characters that they're portraying. And it's different when you try to cast somebody in high school in The Diary of Anne Frank as opposed to someone who's in their 50s or 60s playing one of the elderly characters or the middle-aged characters here. It's just more believable.
When I lived in Amsterdam, I actually got a chance to go to the attic and to see that as on a tour. And so I had firsthand knowledge of what it was like. And so actually being in a situation, recreating that in my own mind has been beneficial for me to do.
One of the dates in the play is 2 days after I was born. And so I keep thinking of what the world was like in those days in the Netherlands, in Europe, when I was relatively safe in Iowa. There's an old copy of the Reader's Digest that people are reading that's actually in the 30s. And I remember when I was 11 or 12, my parents were pack rats, and they had a whole wall of old Reader's Digests. And I remember learning about the Holocaust at that age from reading those articles, which were full of atrocity stories.
The human spirit is the hero, because as she wrote in her diary, she wants to go on living through some extension of herself, which, again, the irony is her diary. Her diary went on to become one of the top 20 books of the 20th century. And so she did live on through that, but all through the whole play or through the writing or the chronicle or journey, that's what she wanted. She wanted to reach out to people and be able to have a dream and to look forward to tomorrow. And the sad part is she did, but in a way that she never really knew.
This is something where we are going to be true to the playwright. We're going to be true to the author and respect how they wanted this story to be told.
I think it's very generous of Centerburg administration to allow us to come in here and to be able to share throughout the county the hard work and labor that goes into this and to make that connection with the high school students. So thank you, Centerburg.